confusing slash,
Right.
and that was, the experience of being told like, oh, you have 3 days bereavement, and like having to think about like, okay, if I go back to Chicago to be with my dad while he's in the hospital having the surgery, doing whatever, like I'll come back and I won't have a job. And I was literally grocery shopping at the dollar store at the time. So it wasn't something that I could afford to do, and when I when the night that he passed, he went into a surgery that he ultimately did not come out of. But the night that he passed, like I'm literally sitting behind the desk at GNC, and I'm closing by myself, and I'm like trying to get in touch with like a manager or like a regional or somebody. Can I close the store early? Like I got to catch a flight. Like I don't know. And literally, as I'm driving home, like finally getting off of work and like speeding home to like go pack a bag and hit the airport and just go find the next flight to Chicago, my mom calls me and says, Dad just died. And I will never forget that feeling of like hopelessness, of like, if I didn't have to worry about getting fired because I have to go and see my dad because he's been in the hospital. He was in the hospital the entire weekend. And of course, they like didn't want to tell me because they didn't want to worry me
My
or what.
mom does that for me too, for no
Ah,
reason. Like
For
not
us,
tell me
it
the
very
drives
worst,
vital
me
information.
the
insane.
worst, the worst. And I'm like, literally, I talked to him on Monday. He lets me know that he's been in the hospital since Friday and didn't want to worry me. And then Tuesday, he goes in for a surgery. I talked to him before that, and that's like the last words that I ever
I
said.
can't even hear you talk about that without like.
But like, but that was it. That was the last straw. And I like, I was in Chicago for 2 weeks, and like
Ugh.
luckily I had a really great manager who's like, we'll just figure it out. I'll drop you to part-time, like whatever, like you'll come back and maybe you'll make less at the job. And so yeah, when I got back, I put it in my mind that the next opportunity I had would be absolutely nothing like this. I started plotting, I started praying, I started whatever. And the catalyst that finally got me in the position to accept the opportunity was because COVID hit and I got furloughed. And so I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? I was a personal trainer before, and I started reinstating my personal trainer certifications. I was like, I guess I'll just build a garage gym and like take clients. I was like, but I will never be someone's employee again. I will never be told, no, you have to be here. The fuck I do. I have shit that is way more important. Like, if I had not put myself in this position, I would never be where I am now as a business owner. I wouldn't have been able to go to Chicago for an entire month to go to my mom in
Yeah.
October. Imagine if I had been like a W-2
Yeah.
employee still. Like if I still hadn't made that change once I realized it had to be made. And then that same situation kind of came up again where I had to choose between what's most important and my job.
Yeah, and I
Like,
think their rule books, the corporate rule book is that it is a
yeah,
rule book, and it's very black and white,
yeah,
and there's no gray area,
it
and
is.
there's a complete lack of empathy. And it's like, okay, your dad just passed away. Well, when are you coming back to work?
Yeah,
Like,
corporate policy, 3 days bereavement.
insane.
I was like, cool. That's not gonna work for me.
Well, and you literally have, now that mental health is like such a big topic now, I think it would be wise of them to restructure something like that, because the reality is people they're not going to use vacation days for mental health days. Like or even like a death, and nobody's going to use days that they have for vacation. Like typically you only have 2 weeks typically during the year for
If
for
that.
really anything. But it would make sense, from the perspective of productivity, but they don't think of it that way.
No. And they don't have to think of it that way because their goal is not to maximize the potential from one individual. It's to
They
just
want
have
sheep.
a body in there that
Yeah.
can do the job. And if it's not
It's
you, it'll be somebody else.
it's
And
designed for the neurotypical.
right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's okay because what was I making? $17 an hour, $20 an hour. Like, I don't even remember what it was, you know, but there's if you want to accept their rules, and if you're cool with just coming in, clocking in, like in my case, like, it was an easy job, but I deserved that 17 bucks, 20 bucks, and I deserved those limitations because that's what I was willing to accept for myself.
Yeah.
It's when I realized that I'm no longer willing to accept these limitations. And that's what it was for me, is like a lot of that impulsivity, decision making, the choices that I had made to get me where I am now. It wasn't because I had this big grand idea, like in Think and Grow Rich, it's like, oh, have your grand vision and whatever. Like, I didn't have a grand vision. I had pain. I had deep, insurmountable pain that I just
For
knew I
freedom.
had to move away from. I wasn't moving towards anything for years until I knew like what I was moving away from. So anyway,
I
maybe
think
we
having
that.
being motivated by pain is something that I will speak for all of us, because I know for a fact that is true for every single one of us on here. And being motivated by pain, I think is extremely relatable.
We're never gonna do it in one episode, but like talking about like even just knowing my parents worked so hard their entire lives in W-2 jobs and still have to work, like if that isn't enough pain for me to like bust my ass, because first of all, I don't think I could ever live permanently with my parents, so I need to have some sort of income that can provide for them. But it's like the just the pain of like not being able to put, like, I mean, you talked about your dad, Brittany, but like I want to make more money so that I can provide more better things for my family. And there's not one single job where I was going to ever make enough money to even help at all. So I never thought of myself as like the one, everyone's probably read that book, but it's like there has to be somebody, neurodivergent, neurotypical, whatever. There has to be somebody that's going to be the one that does things differently than everyone else has the last, 100 years. So it just, you got it. Sometimes it takes that pain to propel you into something greater. But I feel like pain can be the why. It doesn't always have to be.
You guys know
was
mine.
never motivated by money. I was motivated by, don't tell me what to fucking do.
Yeah.
That's
I'm still not really money. I mean, listen, like, I'm not gonna lie and say like I don't like earning a good income. I don't like having a nice home and whatever, but really for me, like the only thing that I care about is like the freedom to make my own decisions and do what's right for me, for my family, to go where I need to go and want to go and things like that. Like, 300, 500K a year, like that kind of stuff, like that is valuable. Yes. It's a tool. Yes. But like money never motivated me. It had to be something else.
Yeah.
It's rare that any of us are motivated by money, just so you know.
Yeah.
You could pay me $1 million salary with as many days off as I wanted, and you could not get me to go into an office every day.
Even in Morgan's case, she's not motivated by money. She's motivated by security for her family. So it's still it's incredibly rare that you find a neurodivergent that is motivated by money.
Yeah.
I could make $300 a month in Thailand and be totally fine too.
You guys know a little bit about, I've spent almost 300 nights working from the hospital room with my kid over the last few years, and there's no chance that I could have been able to afford all of the things for that lifestyle if it hadn't have been for, being in the 1099 or entrepreneurial realm. But even before that, my final straw, and I don't know if any of you know, Brittany, you may know this story, but my water broke with Christian during the October 1st shooting in Vegas. He wasn't born until 5 days later. Over the course of that 5 days that I was in labor, I was having to take literal meetings for this company that I worked for at the time. I was the regional director of a very well-known restaurant chain here in Vegas. I was having to take meetings in labor from my hospital room, like employees from the restaurants coming to the hospital and sitting in the room with me. That was my final straw. That was my final straw. I'm 10 weeks premature, and you can't get me any support while I'm managing 4 of your restaurants by myself. I've got 2 assistant managers, one in 2 different restaurants, and that's it. Like at that
Infuriating.
point, I was done.
And they
It's
knew
just
that you
because-
were they knew that you were pregnant this whole
But here's-
time and did nothing to prepare for your absence.
Here's the thing about, well, I wasn't supposed to be gone for another 10 weeks, but here's the thing about neurodivergence, and this has been proven way more in women than in men, is that we are capable of doing more than just the job of a singular person. And way more often than not, if you look at somebody that's in an executive role or position, they, over the course of their career, have handled 2 to 4 positions at the same time for the pay of one as a neurodivergent, because they know we're not motivated by money and they know that we can do the work. That we
And
will to fit into the
they know
environment.
that nothing bothers us more than things that have to be done that are not being done.
Getting
Yes.
kids.
Yeah.
My God. Yes.
Right.
And so we have to
Literally
be
me
careful
yesterday.
not to be taken advantage of. And I also would fear to say that we're probably all kind of people pleasy if we're not, yeah, big
No.
people pleaser. Big
Well, and then
people
I think about
pleasers,
how long I
so-
people pleased my way to my corporate job, and I'm like, oh yeah, I worked so hard for 10 years to get to this job, and I literally don't want it.
Well, and they don't appreciate it. It's like, oh, Morgan's doing all these extra steps. Good job. There's
Let's
pizza
see
in
what
the
else we
break
can
room.
get her to do.
Yeah,
Well, and that
like,
happened, and that's something that you
what?
have to be careful of even in entrepreneurship, depending on who you're working with, because I mean,
Mm.
I definitely did the job of 5 or 6 people my first couple of years. Whereas like, it's like, yes, I was making more money, as a manager, but like not really in the beginning. Like I was the closer. It's not like I was getting overrides from closing my own deals. So it's like, it's not, there's no way that, you guys, I gotta jump off. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I love you guys. I gotta go too. I just realized what time it is, and I gotta leave for the airport in like 30 minutes.
Bye.
Well, I love you
Great
all.
job,
Let's-
I'm going to California.
Hell yeah.
I'm getting
Let's
my
stop
car and driving
recording.
away.
Okay.
Love you guys.
All right, love
Okay.
you guys.